ASAP. ASAP. Hello and welcome to another episode of MBA ASAP, where we explore business skills and knowledge so you can level up your expertise and learn skill sets that will make you more valuable at your job and career, or help you start something on the side, a little side hustle, or let you quit your job and start your own business. I'm your host, John Cousins. Let's get started. Hey, and welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is a presentation that I did recently to a bunch of entrepreneurs about what they should have in their initial presentation in their pitch deck. You know, the slide deck that hits all the points about your business enterprise and what your idea is and who the markets are and who your customers are and all that kind of good stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this segment, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you on the other side. So, my name's John Cousins, and I'm going to talk to you today about your pitch for your companies, right? So, first, let me ask you, why do you think you need a pitch? What is it, like an elevator pitch? What is your idea about what that is, even? Right. So you can present what you're doing in a clear way to customers.
It's a first impression for your business.
It's a first impression for your business. Excellent.
It grabs somebody's attention in a short span of time.
Grabs their attention. Yeah. And so you're right. And these are all excellent answers, and they're answers for the elevator pitch, outward facing, right, to the customers, to explain what you're doing. But I would also argue that it's a really good thing to go through the discipline of trying to do for yourself, because really what you're trying to do is distill down to its essence what the heck you're trying to do, you know. And a lot of times that's really hard because we get kind of vague. And so it's a disciplined process to gain clarity on your own business, on your own value proposition, your business model, what you're trying to present to people. And the most important part of what you're doing is not necessarily what you've made, right, or your product or service. It's the problem that you're solving for your customers, right? That you understand that your customers have some sort of need, and you are addressing that need in some way. You're meeting that need, right? So that's really right. The focus should always be on the solution, and what solution are you providing? Not that you've built something or you've got an idea and that idea is the right thing, and no matter what anybody says, you're going to plow forward with that idea. You have to modify what you're doing in the face of what customers really want, right? So it's really an interactive kind of process where you come up with an idea, you immediately test it against customers, and you see what kind of feedback you get. If you get feedback that people don't necessarily like what you are ambivalent about it, then you have to dial it in a little bit. You're not solving the problem. You don't want to be a solution in search of problems, right? That whole thing about Field of Dreams, right? Build it and they will come. Not necessarily the case. It's very difficult to get people to think of yourself. There's lots of things that, what's really compelling to you and why. Those are the kind of issues. That's what you really want to bury down into. So it comes from a lot of customer discovery, really talking to people. And that doesn't mean your relatives and your friends, because they're going to just placate you and say, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I really like that. And then they'll never use anything. But really try to find and bury down into use cases and how people are using it. So an elevator pitch, when you talk about an elevator pitch, that's usually something where you can say to people very quickly, maybe a minute or 30 seconds. So if somebody says to you, what do? You can say, bing, 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 this is what I do, and this is the problem I'm solving, and da-da-da. And it should be compelling in some way so that people, you've piqued their interest to learn more, right? It's not a be-all and end-all, because if it is, then you don't have much substance to your product or service, right? It has to be just something that's sort of interesting, piquing, and gives people an idea about what you're doing enough that they can grasp it. Right? So this pitch deck, and it's also for advertising, right? To get your customers, you have to tell them what your value proposition is. What are you proposing? It's a value to them. And every customer is a little bit different. So you may have a couple of different elevator pitches that are sort of targeted to different audience, to customer segments, right? That could be too. It might not be one monolithic segment, one monolithic pitch. You might have different pitches depending on whether it's a company, like you said, or if it's a multimillionaire that's going to use your product. You might have different type of, little bit different angles on it. So let's see if this works. So these are the kind of things that you should think about in your pitch. First of all, this is sort of built for if you're going to do a pitch on on a slide deck or something. You're going to pitch to an audience, and it might be an audience of potential investors, customers, things like that. Anybody in here thinking about doing that, going and getting investor money for their companies, or going that route, like the old Silicon Valley? I don't know if anybody watches those shows like Silicon Valley or venture capital stuff and all. But you can do a lot of this with just bootstrapping your company, either from financing yourself or from the revenues you make, building it better. And that, in a lot of ways, that's actually a much better way to go. Because then you're not giving away part of your company just to get some money that you'll probably misuse anyway because you don't know exactly what you're doing yet. So you have a company name. Everybody have a company name? Everybody think about names that they like for their companies? And then you can have a logo, and you can build your own logo now. It's very easy to have graphics tools. Anybody hear of Canva? Anybody use Canva? Canva's a great tool. It's an online tool. It's free. It's a graphical tool. It makes all these great graphics, and you can make Twitter cards or Instagram cards. They have all the different dimensions and all different graphical elements, so you can put in your images and you can put in your name and all that kind of stuff, and then use those on social media, because that's a great way to promote your business, right? And all social media accounts are free. Does everybody have social media accounts, or think about that? A Twitter account or Facebook account or LinkedIn? Everybody on LinkedIn? That's a really great way to network. So if you have these kind of, you don't actually even have to have the product yet. You can just make your logo, your company name, and your tagline. And a tagline is basically even a distillation of your elevator pitch, right? Maybe 3 to 5 to 7 words that goes underneath your logo. You see them on everything that you buy, right? Coca-Cola has one, and Chipotle has one. Everybody has a little tagline, like FedEx, whatever, right under their logo that basically says, this is what we do. This is our value proposition, boiled down to its real essence. So and then you want to have your contact information so people get a hold of it, whether it's a business card or something online or how you do that. So then you have your elevator pitch, right? That's what we're talking about. And there's an old saying in journalism, right? Don't bury the lead. A lot of people, when they write, when they talk, do what's called bury the lead, where the really important information might be down in the second paragraph of what they're talking about, or 4 minutes into what they're saying or something. You really want to have that lead front and center. What your value proposition is, you really know what that is, and you can describe it succinctly, and you haven't buried the lead. You don't want to wait for people to find out what you do after 5 minutes. Just tell me what you do right now. So you want to have that front and center. It's a succinct and persuasive sales pitch, right? At the end of the day, everything is sales. Everything that we do is sales. Whether it's convincing your kid that we're going to go to the store, or your spouse what movie to go to, or what restaurant, or in business, or convincing people to help you in your business, everything that you do is marketing and sales. So you also want to spark your listeners' interest to your idea. That's what it is. You want to have some sort of a catalyst, some catalytic idea that sparks them, and they say, oh man, this is really great. Tell me more. I might be interested in that, right? And it's a way for you to gauge whether your elevator pitch is good or not, is if there's a lot of follow-on questions, and if their eyes light up and their face changes and the light bulb goes off and they got it. If they don't, if they look at you with a blank face, it's time to go back and revise your elevator pitch, right? So it's just a good way to test whether or not what you're doing is working. And you can just try it out on people, while you're in line at Starbucks or whatever too, and just say, hey, excuse me, what do you do? Oh, this is what I do. And, you can see whether or not it works. And I can send you this too. If you just get in touch with me, I can email you a copy of this presentation and all. And I can email you a copy of this too. I'll probably put this, somewhere. So number two, the thing that you want to really, after you have that elevator pitch together, the next, and the big part of it is, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving for your customers? There's either two things you're doing, right? Either you're solving a pain point, relieving some kind of pain that they have, or you're providing delight. Could be one or the other, right? Entertainment is providing delight. It's also solving the problem of boredom, say. So you can look at these things in various ways. But those are the kind of things you're doing then. And how does your customer address the issue now? What do they do now instead? And is this, most importantly, I think, or a lot of people think, that do this kind of thing for a living, that do this type of accelerator programs and help companies shepherd them along to what they should do. Is this a problem that you've experienced yourself? Is this something that you know firsthand is a pain point for you? That's really where you should be spending your time on something. If it's some sort of theoretical, vague thing that you're going to solve this problem of the world, or you're going to do this or that, that's going to be a bigger challenge for you to actually make into something concrete. But if it's a problem that you experience, and then you also want to know what the frequency of that experience is. If it's something like buying a car, or a house, well, that might be something that your customers do every 7 or 10 years. Not that good of a business model, right? You want something that people experience that problem every day, maybe multiple times a day, and they're going to turn to your product or service to do that, so that you have frequency and how important of a problem is it, and how much are they willing to spend to solve it too. But if it's something that you experience yourself, that's probably a really good place to start. If you don't, probably maybe not such a good idea to pursue. So then you want to turn your solution, right? Your solution to that problem into your value proposition. Is anybody familiar with the business model canvas? That's a great tool. Key, I know you are. It's a way of breaking down a business into 9 categories that any business can be broken down into. And it's basically in the middle is your value proposition, and it's just 9 tiled little boxes on a piece of paper. And on the left is your customers, on your right is your customers, and then on the bottom is your revenues, and then how you're going to reach those customers, the channels that you're going to use. And then on the left-hand side of it is that's all the external-facing stuff, right? The customer-facing stuff. On the left is all the internal stuff, your key suppliers, your key resources, your key partners, and your costs. And when you look at a business in that kind of ecosystem, any business can be broken down that way, and then you can start to see, what is my value proposition? Who are my customer segments? How am I going to reach those guys? How much am I going to charge? How much is it going to cost me? I hope that my costs are less than my revenues, right? Or else you're in big trouble. And what resources do I need? And who are going to be my key partners? You can look at any business that way. The middle central thing, though, on that is the value proposition. So you have to think about, what value are you providing? What pain are you solving? What delight are you providing? What combination of those things are you doing? And why now? Why is your solution viable now and maybe it wasn't in the past? Why hasn't anybody else done it? Is it really that big of a problem that other people have overlooked? Or is it just something that there's hundreds of people doing it and you're going to be a copycat of, and you're going to be lost in the noise? How are you going to define yourself different? So what trends make your solution possible? When we came out with the smartphone, right, suddenly we had this thing in our pocket, and we had it with us all the time, that was a platform that made all kinds of new businesses make sense. A lot of these ones that are what they call matching engines, right? eBay is a matching engine between buyers and sellers. But with the phone, what are some that you can think of? Airbnb, right? Uber, Lyft, those kind of companies where I need a ride, somebody wants to provide, has capacity, driving around, they want to give me a ride. We can settle on a price, and you do it over your phone, and the person shows up. Those are businesses that we couldn't have done 15 years ago because the platform didn't, the enabling technology and platform didn't exist to do those businesses. So that might be why now. There might be some trends, some convergences of technology, something that's happened that now makes your business an opportunity that wasn't an opportunity before. And if you're really smart, you get in early and you say, you know what, I see these things converging in this way, and in 2 years or 18 months, that's going to be happening. The enabling technologies that I'm going to need, the enabling circumstances are going to be there. I'm going to set up now and get things going so that when that happens, I'll be able to capture that wave. I'll be able to surf that wave. That's what a lot of companies do. You think of Amazon, companies like that, right? Amazon didn't make a profit for a decade. You know, they were just capturing market share, spending money, getting it together, and everybody believed in that. And now look at them. They dominate all these industries, and they're only beginning to start to grow because they're only representing 5 and 10% of the different markets they're in, and so they can grow hugely, and they have a lot of headroom to grow. And they saw that this environment was going to be here, or guessed or hoped that this environment was going to be here, and sure enough, it came up, and now they're able to take advantage of that. So those are the kind of things to think of with your business too. Is there a technology angle? Is there something that's going to happen that's going to allow me to have a business that's going to thrive in a future that I think is going to take place? And what's the historical evolution of the category? What has happened before? How are people solving this problem now? What are the things that have happened in the past that make you unique and different? So the next thing is you have something that's proprietary, right? Something that is different, some secret that you're doing that is intellectual property to some degree that you're protecting. It could be a trade secret. It could be a patent, and you can file your own patents for under $500 and then have basically a monopoly in that space if you do it right. Or a copyright. It could be written material or video material or whatever, something like that's yours, that you have, and it's your secret sauce. It's what makes you different. It's what other people can't use that you have and you can do. And it takes on your expertise. And when you're showing these kind of things too, you know, pictures are really great. A demo is really great. If you have a company you're starting, you have an idea, anything that's like a minimal viable product, some sort of prototype, it doesn't even have to work. It could be a PowerPoint slide. It could be a cardboard box with a, you know, coat hanger hanging out of it, but it looks like what you want to do or something. Whatever it is, something that shows what you're trying to achieve. Not only to show other people, but that's how you start to evolve the idea yourself. And what can you do now instead of putting it off into the future and say, oh, I got this great idea for a business. If only I had $10,000, I could do blah, 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 blah. Kill those ideas right now and just say, what can I do right now with what I have, where I am, what are the steps I can take to make this real? And you'd be surprised how many things that you can do that aren't costly and that are actually will move your project along. A lot of times, the things that you think you need to do that are going to cost a lot of money, you're wrong on, and you're going to spend that money wrong anyway. So keep things really, really inexpensive and make things out of what you have now. So is this making sense about how to construct your pitch, how to construct thinking about your business? And you can make this long. You know, you can start out with all your ideas. You write down all your ideas about everything. And then what do you start doing? You start distilling it down and revising it and editing it. And it's never complete, right? It's always a work in progress. Even companies that have been around for 100 years, like General Electric or Chevrolet or whatever, they're always revising their pitch. They're always revising their taglines. They're always revising their advertising campaigns. All those things sort of are together, right? That it's all about branding. It's all about how do you cultivate your image and create your brand, right? And these things change because different ideas change, society changes, all kinds of things, and what people thought were great for a car in 1975 isn't necessarily what they want in a car in 2018. Or in a meal, you know. McDonald's constantly changing it, right? So then you go through and have an idea about your business model. This is a key kind of concept, right? How are you going to make money? How is your idea monetized? That was the great thing in the dot-com boom, right? In the late 90s. The internet came along. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you can reach all these people for, next to no money. And you can have all these great things go on and all, but a lot of companies, they didn't know how to make a company out of it. They just said, look, we have all these great users. We have hundreds of thousands of users, but none of them are paying us. It's free. Those kind of engagements are great, but if you can't monetize it, it's not a business, right? So is it a product or is it a service, or is best as a combination of the two, where you have a product and you have some sort of service features along with it? And that service feature might be like some sort of a maintenance tail or all kinds of things. So then you need a go-to-market plan. How are you going to get to market? How are you going to make your customers aware of your product and things? And all this stuff should really boil down into your pitch, into your elevator pitch. Are you a digital-first company? Are you reaching people through social media and driving them to your website? How are you getting them to sign up for your email list? There's a great, lead capture device right back there. It's a pen and paper, and it's an email list for the library. You sign up for that, and then they start telling you about your programs and start to get that engagement. It doesn't have to be high tech. Pen and paper are still great technologies, right? There's this old, talk about technologies. There's this old story about the space programs, the U.S. and the Russian space program back in the 70s. And the U.S. spent, I think it was $10 billion to make an anti-gravity pen, a pen where the ink, because you need gravity to make the ink drop down to the bottom of the pen to write with, right? So when you don't have gravity, how do you get the ink to the pen? So they came up with all these ideas, pushing the ink through, nothing worked, The Russians solved it. They used a pencil. Right? So you got to think about those kind of things. Maybe you're working on the wrong problem. Maybe you're working on the wrong solution. Think about your competitors, where they are, where you're going to land in the landscape in between everybody and all that. So yeah, do you have direct competitors? Who are the substitute products? All those kind of things. Know where you fit in that competitive landscape, and you want a niche, right? The whole idea is to find a niche, something where you really can dominate. It doesn't have to be a lot of people at first. It can be a very, very small niche, and then from there you can expand out. But there you get to know who your customers are, and then you can scale up from there. But starting with a niche that nobody else thinks is that important, none of your competitors do, is a real great way to dominate a market and make yourself feasible and viable as a company. Because at the end of the day, if you have a small company, if it's just you, right, or something, you don't need to make $1 million a month to make the thing work, right? 10 grand a month will do just fine. You just got to figure out, you can niche down and make enough money to have a thriving business and not have to worry about, reaching everybody. And that doesn't really work anyway, because each segment of your market is going to be another niche as you go forward. So the competitive landscape is, who's out there going to eat your lunch? Who's your management team? You may be wearing all these hats. And actually, that's, in some cases, a very preferable thing to do. You can get very tiring having investors and big customers that you're trying to please instead of a whole bunch of little ones that are easy to please. Or, employees and partners and all this stuff. Those people, human, problems can be really a drain on your energy. So you may be wearing all these hats, or you may have partners and key players or key resources that you need from people. You might need a programmer or a marketer or whatever it is. You may have advisors, you may have investors. So you have to know who those are and have those identified. And then you really want to start looking at this, right? You want to have a metric. You want to have some metric that you are measuring to see each week if that metric is growing. Is it users? In most cases, it should be revenues, right? Because if you're not making money, you don't have a business. And that money needs to be increasing every week, arguably, right? And you need to take a look at that. And so how much did I make this week? How much did I make next week? How much did I make next week? And you have projections of that. You can have a goal. In a year, I'm making, $50 a week now. In a year, I want to make $500 a week. How am I going to get from here to there? Well, next month, I got to be making $75 a week. And how am I going to get there? Well, that means next week, I got to make $62 a week. And you have to see, am I making this happen? If you're not on your plan, then you have to readjust and start to figure out different ways of doing it. But you have to have simple metrics and simple revenue projections that say, on a literally, on a day-to-day basis, but on a week-to-week basis, is this actually working? Because there's no long-term progress without short-term progress. And you can have all these lofty goals for, in 2 years, I want to be this. If you don't have a day-to-day plan of how you're going to get there, it's not going to happen. Boeing has 5-year plans for the development of their planes. They break those 5-year plans into daily objectives. Every day, they know where they need to be, what the milestones and deliverables are every day to get from here to 5 years. They don't just say, 5 years, we're going to have a new plane. Every day, they have a daily plan. So think of that. It's 350 days times 5. It's, something like 1,500 or 1,600 different plans. Boom, boom, boom. That's the way you need to be thinking, really granularly, and really hold yourself to it, or else it's not going to happen. You can sit here and dream all day long. And I have to tell you, everybody thinks that making a business is about ideas. It's not about ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has thousands of them. It's about execution. It's about actually doing it. And you have to love the execution. If you don't love the execution, you're not going to do it. So if it's something that you think is a chore and you're not doing it, you probably should be thinking about doing something else. Really what you should think of is when you procrastinate, or when your mind drifts, when you procrastinate, what are you procrastinating about? That's what you should be doing every day. That's the thing you should be doing, because that's the thing you really love doing, if you're honest with yourself. And it's all about self-honesty. So then you start thinking about this, right? Your timeline, your current, where you are now, what the accomplishments are, and you can start talking about that in your elevator pitch too. Yeah, I just did this event and that event and that event, and those were great events. You generate enthusiasm and credibility about what you're doing, right? You want social proof too. You want people that say, you want word of mouth. You want people to say, that was the best thing I ever did, or you got to try this out because it's so much fun, or this really changed my life by using this product, whatever it is. And you want to have those inflection points. When you get to some kind of stage, what does that prove up for your business? Does it reduce the risk? How are you creating value out of your enterprise? And I think that's it. So also you want to keep it short and crisp, right? It's all about being succinct. Before we build anything, let's PowerPoint the idea to death, right? And you want to make your presentations dynamic. Even if it's 30 seconds, you want to start with something and you want to have some sort of a punchy part, and then you want to have some sort of a conclusion, right? You want to tell them what you're going to tell them the thing, and tell them what you told them. You want to be relaxed. You will be relaxed if it's coming from the heart. If it's something you truly believe in, you'll be able to talk about it and it won't be any problem. You won't be nervous. It won't be like, I'm going to forget what I'm going to say or anything like that. You just let it flow, right? And then watch it later on video and see, oh my God, what the hell was I talking about? So here's a bunch of ways you can stay in touch with me too and stuff like that. If you just Google my name, I'm all over social media and everything else. And I'd love to hear from any questions you have, anything like that. Right now I'm teaching a program over at UNM in the continuing ed called MBA Lite, where each week we take one course of an MBA program, and there's 15 courses. If you do 10 of them, you get a certificate, and it runs. I did it in the spring from January to May, and now it's gone from September to December. And so that's what I do, is I do this kind of teaching and stuff, and I really love it. I have a company called MBA ASAP. It's all books and online courses and audiobooks and a podcast and all about business subjects and stuff. So I just love doing this stuff. I'm compelled to do it. So it's hard to get me off of here after you. That's it. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. The show notes are available on the website. Just go to mba-asap.com and click on podcast on the menu along the top. And there you'll find all things related to the podcast. Just scroll down and there are links to the show notes for each episode. If you have any questions or suggestions, email me at john.cousins@mba-asap.com. And follow me on Twitter. I'm very active there. My handle is @JJCousins. And send me a connect request on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you there. And go to the website and sign up for the mailing list. Thanks again. Until next time, peace. MBA ASAP. MBA ASAP.